Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to take the info you've shared and, well, really get straight to what matters most. You want that solid understanding, but, without feeling totally buried in information. And that's what we do. So today we're diving into a set of really interesting, kind of interconnected ideas you sent over. Stuff like hustle, grind, what gets us motivated, staying focused.
Perseverance, grit.
Yeah, that inner drive, and importantly, how we stay well through it all.
It's a great collection of concepts.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack these, see how they fit together, and hopefully pull out some clear, useful insights for your goals, like, personal, professional, all that.
And you've given us some really good material to work with, articles on hustle culture, motivation, mental toughness, the science behind discipline. It's all in there.
Okay, fantastic. So let's get started. Where should we begin? Maybe with hustle and grind.
Sounds good. That's often the starting point for these discussions, isn't it?
Seems like it. So Storeplum, they define this as like a really unwavering commitment, discipline too, and a super strong work ethic, all aimed at success.
Right. They make a point that it's not just being busy for the sake of it.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Hustle isn't just working aimlessly without any output, they say, and they're pretty direct, adding, hustle brings the dollar. Seems clear.
It does paint that picture, the one we often hear, but it's really important we also bring in the talent culture perspective here.
Okay, what do they add?
Well, they raise a flag about the potential downside. This intense hustle and grind culture, it can lead to, tying your self-worth completely to your output.
Ah, I see. So it's a bit of a warning sign.
Exactly. It's a contrast, isn't it? Storeplum focuses on that positive drive, the achievement side. But talent culture points out how that same intensity, if unchecked, can really wear you down, physically and mentally.
That makes sense. So it's not that hustle itself is bad, maybe, but the relentless, always-on version could be.
That seems to be the tension, yeah. The sources suggest that, sustained success needs something more nuanced. Output can't be the only measure.
And talent culture backs this up, right? With that Deloitte study.
They do. It found a pretty significant chunk of both employees and executives feeling fatigued, experiencing poor mental health.
Wow. And wasn't there a disconnect mentioned? Like, leaders thought things were better than employees felt they were.
Yes. That's a really crucial finding. Leaders were much more optimistic about the well-being support than the people actually experiencing the day-to-day reality.
Makes you wonder why that gap exists, doesn't it?
It really does. And talent culture lists some serious outcomes from that kind of work-at-all-costs environment. We're talking increased stress, more absenteeism, burnout, obviously. And ironically, it can actually decrease productivity and quality.
So it backfires.
It can, yeah. And higher turnover rates, too. So that initial appeal of just pushing harder, maybe not the best long-term strategy.
Okay, so if just grinding constantly isn't the sustainable answer, what about motivation? Where does that fit in? Storeplum calls it a powerful tool, something that ignites the flames of success.
They talk about that inner fire, that desire being the real driver.
Right, but desire can fluctuate, can't it?
Absolutely. And that's where Gilles Baudet's advice comes in. He says, remember your why, especially when things get tough.
Your why. So connecting to something bigger.
Exactly. Your family, your passion, maybe your big dreams, whatever that core reason is that keeps you moving when it's difficult.
I like that. It kind of reframes the struggle.
Yeah.
Baudet suggests knowing your why makes setbacks feel less like failures and more like, what was it, stepping stones?
Stepping stones, yeah.
Yeah.
It anchors you. When the daily grind feels overwhelming, tapping back into that why gives you resilience.
Okay, that makes sense.
And Baudet also has a very practical tip that follows from this. Breaking big goals down.
Ah, yes. Into smaller, manageable tasks to avoid that feeling of being totally swamped.
Precisely. Because feeling overwhelmed is a real motivation killer.
Definitely. So you break it down, and then Baudet mentions celebrating the small wins, right? To build momentum.
Yes. Create that positive feedback loop for yourself. Each small victory proves you're making progress and fuels the next step.
Okay, so we have the why for motivation and breaking things down to keep momentum. What about just sticking with it? Perseverance.
That's where blogs at Baruch comes in. They talk about perseverance being essential to actually see the results of your hard work. You have to keep going.
They had that interesting anecdote, didn't they?
Yeah.
About cultural emphasis in Asia on not giving up easily.
They did, and they connected it to a survey where people regretted academic choices, feeling held back by mental blocks.
Suggesting that perseverance helps you push through those barriers and avoid later regret. It makes you think about times you maybe gave up too soon.
It does. And that leads us very nicely into grit, Angela Duckworth's definition, from bridge to balance.
Right, grit.
Passion and perseverance for long-term and meaningful goals.
Okay, so passion and perseverance. It's not just stubbornness. It's sticking with something you genuinely care about for the long haul.
Exactly, not giving up when it gets tough because the goal itself is meaningful to you.
And Bridge to Balance says having grit and determination actually helps you feel better, navigate adversity more confidently.
Yeah, they suggest it fosters a more positive mental state. It helps you handle negative thoughts, negative emotions, and take a more proactive approach to improving your mood.
Taking ownership, believing you can overcome things.
Precisely. Which brings us naturally to discipline.
Okay, discipline. Aleo.ai defines that as the ability to control your thoughts, actions, emotions, all to get the outcomes you want.
And they stress it involves self-control, willpower, perseverance again, and delaying gratification.
It's not just blind obedience, though, right? It's about understanding why you're doing something and making a conscious choice.
That conscious choice is absolutely key. And Aleo.ai draws a really important line between discipline and motivation. Well, motivation might be the spark, the initial excitement, but discipline is what keeps you going when that spark isn't there. It's the consistent action.
Ah, okay. So motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes.
Exactly. But discipline is fundamental for long-term success because it is reliable, or at least something you can build to be reliable.
So discipline is like the engine. Motivation is maybe the turbo boost that kicks in sometimes.
That's a good way to put it. And Aleo.ai outlines how discipline helps build good habits, beat procrastination, maintain focus, create structure.
Increases productivity, builds willpower. Sounds like a superpower.
It kind of is, and there's science behind it. Aleo.ai explains that discipline can literally train your brain, make it more focused, more resilient, more adaptable.
How does that work? Psychologically?
Psychologically, yeah. It's developing self-control, managing impulses, prioritizing goals, fostering that work ethic.
And neurologically? Does it change the brain?
Apparently so. It strengthens neural pathways linked to self-control and decision-making. It can even increase dopamine production, which relates back to motivation and reward.
Wow. So discipline actually helps create its own motivation, in a way.
It seems like it can create a positive cycle. And Aleo.ai gives practical ways to build it. Setting SMART goals.
We've heard that one before.
Creating routines, schedules, breaking tasks down again. These themes keep connecting.
And dealing with obstacles like procrastination, identifying them.
Yes, and overcoming them. But also, importantly, balancing discipline with rest. You need to avoid burnout. It's not about being a machine.
Right. And habit formation is key too, isn't it? Starting small, staying consistent, making it feel natural over time.
Consistency is the magic ingredient there. Now, speaking of resisting temptation for a later reward, the marshmallow experiment. James Clear discusses this one.
Ah, the classic. One treat now or wait and get two. Simple but profound.
Totally. And Clear emphasizes the follow-up findings. The kids who waited, they had better SAT scores later on, lower rates of substance abuse, obesity.
Better stress response, better social skills. It's amazing how much that one skill seemed to predict.
It really highlights the power of delaying gratification. Clear connects it to choosing the pain of discipline over the ease of distraction.
But wasn't there a twist? A replication of the experiment?
Yes, the University of Rochester one. That's crucial. They added an element of reliability.
How did that change things?
Well, if the kids had experiences where the adults didn't keep their promises earlier, they were much less likely to wait for the second marshmallow.
Ah, so it wasn't just pure willpower inside them. Their environment, their trust mattered hugely.
Exactly. It suggests that experiencing reliability, seeing promises kept, actually trains the brain to value waiting. Small, consistent deliveries build that trust.
That adds a whole other layer. It's not just about me, it's about my environment too.
Right. And Clear gives those really practical tips for improving delayed gratification yourself.
Yeah.
Start incredibly small.
Like ridiculously small.
Yeah. Improve just 1% a day. Use the Seinfeld strategy. Don't break the chain. Build consistency.
And find ways to start a task in under 2 minutes. Just get it going.
All designed to build that momentum and belief in your ability to follow through.
Okay, these are things people can actually do. Now, all this perseverance, discipline, grit, it requires mental toughness, resilience. Headspace talks about this.
They define it as managing your thoughts, emotions, and energy under stress. And resilience is that ability to bounce back.
Bounce back, adapt. And they link this to mindfulness and meditation.
Strongly. Meditation helps you practice sitting with discomfort, letting go of difficult thoughts without getting swept away. It strengthens the mind, like exercise strengthens the body. That's their analogy.
Training the mind not to be jerked around by every stressful thought or feeling.
Pretty much. And they mention vulnerability, which seems counterintuitive at first.
How does vulnerability fit into mental toughness?
Being aware of difficult feelings is the first step to letting them go, acknowledging them, not fighting or ignoring them.
Okay, I get that. Naming it helps you manage it.
Exactly. And Headspace points to research showing real benefits, increased resilience, reduced stress, even with groups like the U.S. Marines facing intense pressure.
So mindfulness training helps them recover better.
Significantly better, the study suggested. It helps shift from just reacting to stress to consciously responding.
React versus respond. That's a key shift. Okay, so we've covered a lot: the drive, the discipline, the grit, the mental tools.
All right.
But we started by talking about the risks of pure grind. So wellness has to be part of this equation.
Absolutely crucial. Talent culture brings us back to this. Wellness isn't just the absence of illness. It's that overall state, physical, emotional, mental.
And they made a business case for it, right? It's not just fluffy stuff.
Not at all. Lower healthcare costs for the company, better productivity, lower recruiting costs because people stick around. It makes financial sense.
Makes sense. And they listed concrete ways for workplaces to promote wellness instead of grind culture. What were those again?
Let's see. Sufficient paid time off was one. Flexible schedules and encouraging breaks. Having the right equipment so people aren't struggling. Embracing remote work or flexible hours where it fits.
Right. Flexibility seems key.
And regular one-on-one check-ins. Actually talking to people about how they're doing.
Seems like basic human decency, but maybe it gets lost in the push for results.
It can, which is why talent culture emphasizes writing it down, make it official policy. And crucially, managers have to lead by example.
Walk the talk.
Yeah.
Can't preach balance if you're sending emails at midnight.
Precisely. The culture needs to support it from the top down.
Okay. So pulling all these threads together, it feels like motivation is the spark. Discipline provides the consistent fuel.
Right.
Perseverance gets you over the bumps. Grit keeps you focused on the long-term passion.
Yeah.
Delayed gratification helps you make smart choices along the way.
Mental toughness helps you handle the stress.
And wellness is the foundation that makes the whole thing sustainable. Is that about right?
I think that captures the interconnectedness really well. It's a system, not just separate tactics.
And the big takeaway seems to be that, yes, hard work, hustle, they're often needed, but they have to be balanced with taking care of yourself to avoid crashing and burning.
That's the core message running through these sources, definitely. And the hopeful part is that these qualities, discipline, resilience, grit, they aren't fixed traits you either have or don't.
Right, you can cultivate them. Like Marshmallow Experiment follow-up showed, and the strategies for building discipline. It takes conscious effort, practice.
Exactly, it's something you can actively work on.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening is, just take a moment to consider your own balance. Where are you on that spectrum between drive and, well, well-being?
What's your why?
Yeah, what's your why?
Yeah.
And maybe what's just one tiny step you could take, starting today? Maybe something from Jane's Clear about starting small, or an Aleo.ai tip on routine. Just one thing to build a bit more sustainable strengths for that marathon, not just the sprint.
It's about finding a way to pursue your goals that energizes you in the long run, rather than depletes you.
Well said. Lots to think about there. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.